A lot of people were misunderstanding what you were saying about Taiwan here. Yeah, I know. I didn't even get into it, but it's very, very stupid, right? Absolutely brutal community note, says Frank Luntz. Breaking news, Taiwan's main opposition, the KMT, said on Monday that its chairwoman, Shangli Wang, has accepted an invitation from the Chinese President Xi Jinping and the Communist Party's Central Committee to lead a party delegation to China. It's a big deal, right? It's a big deal in relations between Chinese Taipei, or Taiwan, if you want to call it that, and mainland China, led by the Communist Party of China. And as you guys already know, I've talked about this extensively. I've covered this extensively. The overwhelming attitude, the domineering attitude in Taiwan is status quo. Stick to the course, stay the course, status quo. 1 foot in China, 1 foot in mainland China, 1 foot in the Western world. It's been very beneficial for developing Taiwan for a very long time. And I recognize that. Although the American government, ironically enough, the State Department's attitude on Taiwan is that Taiwan is a part of China, right? Like they have a strategic ambiguity in the way that they deal with Taiwan, and they obviously beef up the defenses of Taiwan and foment discontent against China within Taiwan. And obviously, like, there's a historic tension there as well. But like, the State Department in its official communique says they recognize Taiwan as a part of China. That's besides the point. If you are looking at the Taiwanese population and their attitude, they want status quo. I loved it accurately pointing out stated U.S. policy is CCP shilling. Yeah, exactly. CCP shilling, but in cutesy lowercase. The U.S. doesn't want peaceful reunification, but maybe they're too busy right now, is what I said. Seeing that there is like an opportunity, seeing that there's like clearly an opportunity there from the Chinese government's attitudes to move in the direction of peaceful reunification, right? What's frustrating is like everyone got super mad. They're like, oh, dude, you want to fucking militarily dominate. You want China to like fucking blow up Taiwan. All this shit. Very stupid. And I think part of the reason why people are yelling like this, reason why people are yelling like this and just like assuming the worst, both in my commentary on this and assuming the worst specifically in what China will do, is because they're coping. They realize that America's losing its capabilities around the world and like dominating around the world. And they recognize that Donald Trump has brought about great instability to the rest of the planet. And therefore they're just like hoping that there is a big bad out there that they can like shift their focus to. Because Americans at the end of the day, have somewhat of a sense of the damage that we've brought about the rest of the world. Right. But they get super attached to like any other great power around the world that's doing things that we suspect they're doing in the same way that America does, right? That's what it is. China, on the other hand, has shown no interest in like militarily dominating Taiwan beyond doing like the saber rattling that they do with like in their own backyard when they do like, military positioning and things like that. But outside of that, it's not, there have been plenty of opportunities, especially in the last 3 years, where China could have moved militarily to Taiwan. I don't think they're going to do that. I might be wrong, but judging by their past performance and judging by their commitments thus far, it doesn't seem to be the case. And I also am saying this with like, somewhat, I would say, a better understanding of like what the Chinese government's attitude is towards Taiwan. They see what it looked like when Russia militarily invaded Ukraine. The Chinese government and the Chinese population and the mainland China's attitude towards Taiwan is a little bit different than Russia's attitude towards Ukraine, as far as like they see, Taiwanese people as Han Chinese. They are, right? And they don't think that a military incursion is going to be successful at all. They don't want to fucking kill these people. They don't want to fight the Han Chinese population in Taiwan. They see it as like, one country. There's also the additional difficulties of doing an amphibious invasion on an island like Taiwan, right? Not dissimilar to what we've seen with Iran and the difficulties that America will have in militarily invading Iran. So there is that too. I mean, it's mountains. It's covered by mountains, mountainous, and like An amphibious invasion of Taiwan is going to be a very difficult military operation to pull off. It's going to be very deadly. It's going to be very bloody. So I suspect that the Chinese attitude, especially judging by what they've said thus far and what they've done thus far as like shying away from any sort of military incursion since like invading Vietnam, really, and that was a spectacular failure. They have no ambitions to do such a thing, right? They have no ambitions to like militarily invade Taiwan and have this spectacular fuck up, this incredibly violent quagmire that they went into when their goal, it seems, is to be the guarantors of stability and safety around the world. Like that's how they're presenting themselves right now. And Trump has actually given them a tremendous opportunity to show this to even the European vassal states that refuse to reckon with that reality. You're being too blind by ideology. This is a state. It will strike if opportunity will benefit them materially. Did you hear the side that I described to you? I didn't say this is I didn't say that this is because they're like good. I've been very critical of Chinese foreign policy, but part of the reason, part of my criticism of Chinese foreign policy is their like outright non-interventionist attitude. They refuse to aid and abet any sort of like anti-Western initiatives, even if it suits their purpose, right? Their stated objectives in the South China Sea, in and around the South China Sea, they don't even do that. So my point is, it's incredibly difficult and incredibly violent to try and do this militarily anyway, and they've shown no interest in doing so in the past. So I think they're trying to move in the direction of accelerating peaceful reunification. This is, of course, going to be very frustrating for a lot of Americans, but and maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe China will prove me wrong. Maybe they'll literally militarily invade Taiwan. I don't know. I don't think so, is what I'm saying. Okay, I'm not going to make the mistake of being aggressive in my commentary in the same way that I was when I did not foresee Russia invading Ukraine militarily, because I said it would be a spectacular fuck up, which it was. It's very violent. But yeah, everybody got mad. Hasan, you correctly argued that the people of Crimea should decide its status. Democratic self-governance. Why should Taiwan be different? The vast majority of people in Taiwan want status quo, de facto independence. I don't think it's de facto independence in the way that he claims it is. I think status quo is not de facto independence, as a matter of fact. Status quo is status quo, with the rest leaning towards legal independence. So the Taiwanese population is polled on their attitudes all the time, right? And they want status quo. What that means is one foot in mainland China, because many Taiwanese people live and work in mainland China, right? And also being able to freely travel and do trade, unrestricted trade with the West as well, like 1 foot in China, in the Chinese market, 1 foot in the Western market, right? And it's ironic because, like, historically, KMT is the nationalist forces that escaped with a lot of the remaining Chinese gold to the island of Formosa, Taiwan, and they did a lot of ethnic cleansing there. But we're not going to get into all of that. But basically, for the longest time, the KMT, like the old KMT, ambitions were to restore the Republic of China, right? Mainland China is the People's Republic of China. ROC, the Republic of China, was the KMT's vision, which is even a larger territory than what the PRC currently occupies. It was a territory that like expanded beyond Mongolia, ironically enough. That was their initial goal, and they were getting the recognition from the Western world until Richard Nixon changed it. Richard Nixon decided we're recognizing the People's Republic of China. It was a huge deal. Anyway. The point is, KMT, although initially was the separationist forces that unfortunately were not able to be dealt with at the time by Mao Zedong because the Korean War started, all this stuff, right, are now the forces in the country that are in line with reunification. The problem for KMT, however, of course, is that young people in Taiwan have identified themselves as Taiwanese, like as their cultural markers are about not being a part of China, right? Like there's a lot of resistance from many young people. However, given the American allegiance and the instability that it yields all around the world, I do see that there is an opportunity here for China to engage Taiwan with peaceful reunification. KMT doesn't support reunification law. No, KMT's attitude is ultimately towards reunification. It's literally to normalize relations with China. And no, KMT support reunification under the ROC, which is not possible. No, you're wrong. That's just objectively no longer true. The DPP is the American party, is the CIA-backed party, and it's an independence party. And many people will point to the DPP to say, oh, well, you don't understand. The DPP is like one, and that means that the population in Taiwan don't want reunification. They want independence. And that's the argument. Yet they never actually say the reversal of that, where they'll never turn around and be like, well, voting for the KMT then means they want reunification. Then it doesn't work that way, right? Was the Hong Kong reunification considered peaceful? I mean, yeah. I mean, that's been happening since like the 90s, though. I do think that the one country, two systems attitude, however, is somewhat of a failure. It's been, I think it hasn't seen the necessary success. And ironically enough, I believe that is part of the reason why they can't make a better argument for peaceful reunification with Taiwan, right? Because the reality of the matter is, if you could show prosperity in Hong Kong and like solving a lot of the problems born out of like the real estate market, for example, in Hong Kong, as a like if you were to solve that problem and then show people like, no, look, Hong Kong is prosperous now, rather than a former British colony that is like left dormant for the last 20 years, as like the rest of mainland China has improved dramatically. You could use that as an argument to show Taiwan that peaceful reunification with very little friction is possible. Now, the reason why I say it's like all things considered somewhat of a peaceful transition is because objectively, these sorts of things are supposed to be much more violent affairs in general, right? All things considered, it has been an infinitely more peaceful transfer of power. And at times when China has come in and tweaked and greatly restructured like the governance process inside of Hong Kong, as they've done so, especially in the last decade, people have protested against it. There's the Free Hong Kong movement and stuff like that. But again, all those things are relatively tame in comparison to like how aggressively people normally fight. Anyway, my assessment, however, is that one country, two systems has not been as successful as it could have been. That is also part of the problem with like making an argument, because everyone can turn around and be like, we don't want Taiwan to turn into Hong Kong, and they can just like say whatever they want to say about the system in Hong Kong. Anyway, I responded. I said, I never said anything different. I recognize status quo is the overwhelmingly popular choice. Many people from Taiwan work in the mainland. I should know. I have relatives who do. And yet, people are professional misunderstanders of my position, and they just like decide to add on seasoning to what I'm actually saying, and make it seem like I'm saying something I'm not saying. Right? Americans are so fucking funny and annoying, acting like they give a fuck about people's sovereignty, meanwhile holding multiple colonies themselves. And when brought up, they want to give those colonies statehood or don't even know of their existence. Why the fuck are we so concerned about Taiwan and China? Don't mean the government, I get that part, but like people, especially libs and conservatives, it's a really successful way to consistently agitate against our foreign adversaries. I mean, that's how it is. It's the same as it's basically the same as like the blockade in Cuba, right? It's supposed to be this invisible protocol, this invisible system of sanctions that are invisible on purpose. It's invisible by design, so that you can just say it's actually communism that has failed these people. It's the redistributive system that the Cuban government has implemented that has failed these people. It's an ideological battle, right? And it's the same with all these other places. It makes us feel better about our position overall if we can highlight all of the shortcomings of Chinese governance and even human rights issues and human rights abuses that the Chinese government also engages in. It's a massive power, right? Like all states do stuff like this. But it makes us feel better because, like, oh, there's a scary foreign adversary out there, and they would be so much worse to us than we have been to everyone else if we are not the domineering power. It is the mentality that props up American exceptionalism. That's how you can prop it up, by constantly creating scary boogeymen. I think he was more focused on the anti-war leftist cheering on PRC invasion of Taiwan. Is saying I will never criticize Mao Zedong, one of the great leaders of the world, CCP Schilling, or am I just being bad faith? Yeah, I mean, what's the argument? These guys always do this. Will they be like, oh, he said Hamas is a part of the Palestinian resistance? Okay, it is, objectively. Explain to me why it's not a part of the Palestinian resistance, you know? These guys just rely on everybody else and their lack of knowledge to make a convincing case without actually having to convince anyone. It's so fucking stupid.